All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sharon's Faith Corner, episode 26. Thank you always for inviting me and my guests into your home and into your day. Again, the hope for this whole project is that somebody's miracle is going to save somebody's life. And so please share these videos. If you'd like to be part of it, please message me. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, we can make it happen. And I'd like to get as many of your miracles as possible. But today I'm super excited. I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Michelle. I'm so excited to know her as a person, but I'm excited for you all to hear her miracle. So with that, I'm going to turn it to her.
Okay. Good. I'm Michelle. I have been sober since September 25th of 2021. My story started kind of growing up. Grew up in a broken home. My parents divorced when I was 12 or 13. Both were very heavy alcoholics. My dad was a police officer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for most of my childhood. But very heavy drinkers. So of course I had my first drink when I was probably about 8 years old. And then once they divorced, I went and lived with my aunt for a while over in Oregon, through junior high and most of high school. I ended up dropping out of high school, but getting my GED first. I went back to Idaho where I was from, and that's where my addiction kind of started. I started on pot and alcohol. I always had alcohol on me, always had pot on me. That was just kind of the way it was. That's how I grew up. When I married my first husband, I was 20. I believe I was 20. I was 20. I just turned 21. Right after we got married, we got into crank pretty heavily. We were on that for a while. I remember it was so bad I would hear voices coming from speakers, from couches, and I woke up one day. I had been passed out, like I crashed for 3 days. I woke up and I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live this life anymore. So I stopped using. At that time, about 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. So that kind of kept me off of everything for a while. I stayed sober, being a mom. I moved to Utah in 1997. So my daughter was almost 2 when I moved here. Things were good. I divorced my first husband, met my second husband. We were together for quite a while. 13 years is how long we were married, legally married. We had 2 daughters. And I didn't do anything really than drink on occasion. Once we divorced in 2009. And then let me back up. 2008, I found, 2002, after I had my third daughter, I got into pain pills really bad. I got in a car wreck, and so I got into pain pills really bad. That was at the height of the prescription medication dilemma, where doctors were just prescribing that for everything. So I got into Percocets, really heavy, Somas, and I stayed pretty hardcore with those for quite a while. In 2009 is when we divorced. I was still on the pain pills, still using those heavily, drinking heavily. By this time, I didn't think I had a problem because, my doctor prescribed them. So I was on those for a while. I remember I got off of them in, it would have been 2010, I believe, is when I finally got off of the pain pills. My drinking was still pretty heavy. And that just kept going for for a long time. In 2017, I was with a guy. We'd been together for about 4 years. We ended up breaking up, and that's when I relapsed on meth. I had been clean off of that type of drug for 22 years, due to the heartbreak and all of the things that come with a breakup. I got into meth pretty severely, and it escalated so quickly that within 6 months, I was homeless, jobless, carless. My daughters all went to live with my sister while I was out on the streets in Provo. My addiction escalated from there. I went from smoking meth to shooting up, and living on the streets. My criminal activity started happening pretty severely to where I was in jail more often than not. Utah County Jail seemed to like me a lot. They knew me by name. They called me Mama Sing when I would go in. My second daughter and I were, she had been in active addiction since she was 12. So we were out on the streets together. I had actually relapsed with her when I did relapse. So we were out on the streets together in Provo for about 4 years, using together, selling together, all the things. We'd go to jail together. We were cellies in jail quite often. And it just got to the point where I was just getting tired of it. Like, I lost my mom while I was in jail, and I hadn't seen her for about a year. So that was really hard. That was one thing that almost broke me, is not being able to be there with her, and then not being able to attend her funeral. It's still something I still suffer with. I got out of jail 3 days after her funeral, and I hit the ground running. I just lost all hope, and I just felt so worthless because I was in active addiction and in jail when my mom passed away. And so this negative self-talk and self-loathing, self-hate just kept me out there. She passed away six months before I got clean. I went to my first treatment, which was Foothill, in in June of 2021. She passed away St. Patrick's Day of 2021. So June, I went to Foothill. I completed the program, 60 days. I got out just in time for my youngest daughter's birthday. But I was high within 24 hours later. I went right straight back to it. Went on the run from my PO for about a month. It was almost a month to the day. I got arrested again September 29th of 2021. I went into the jail with COVID. The jail didn't want me. My PO says, "Oh, you're taking her, whether you want to or not." So I went straight to medical, and while I was in medical for the 2-week quarantine, I had nothing but time on my hands, right? Like pacing back and forth, reading what books they would give me, just a lot of self-reflection. And I remember I was about 7 or 8 days in, and I had talked to my public defender, and he says, your probation officer's revoking everything. They're done with you. They're just revoking your probation. They're sending you to prison. Now mind you, I was on like my 7th probation violation. This is my 7th probation violation when I went in, so I was like, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, so I'm going to prison. But it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was just pacing in my cell down in medical, and I remember stopping like in the middle of my pace and just being that it was my moment of surrender. I was just like, I will do what you want me to do, but don't let my kids give up on me. That was my motivation, is my kids. They were done, like, and rightfully so. They were done dealing with my crap. always worrying if they're going to get the phone call that I've, passed away, or that I'm lost, or that kind of phone call. So that was my moment of surrender, is I will do what you tell me to do, just don't let my kids give up on me. And so when I got put into housing, after my 2 weeks, I called my attorney and I said, do you think there's a chance? Do you think there's a chance I can go back to treatment? And he says, I don't know. I don't see him letting you, but it doesn't hurt to try. He says, so you call, make some appointment, or get on the waiting list for some beds or for a bed in treatment. And then we'll at least have that to present to the judge. So I called around. I got put on the list with Reflections, and then I got put on the list with Matter. And my brain kept saying, oh, Reflections, 30-day program in Utah County, I can do that, But my higher power had another another plan for me. I went to court and I told the judge, I says, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm on the waiting list for Matter as well as Reflections if you agree to release me to treatment. And he talked to the prosecutors, and they said, look, we don't think she should. There's been a history of, and just naming off, I had like 17 felonies by this point, and no success in treatment outside of jail. I did the RISE program, and I did really well with that, but as soon as I got out, I went back to it. So my PO and prosecuting attorney said, no, we don't want her, we just want to send her up. And my judge that had been my judge since my criminal activity had started had retired a couple months before this. So I had a new judge. I think his name is Peterson, and he just looked me right in the eyes. He says, Ms. Singh, we don't have a history, and I don't want us to have one. I'm giving you one last chance to go to treatment. If you mess this up, you will be doing prison time. So he had seen something in me that nobody else was willing to look at and see. So 3 days later, I get called to roll up. So I went down, and I didn't know which treatment program it was. It was either going to be Reflections or it was going to be Matter, and I was kind of hoping it was Reflections because it was a 30-day program. However, it was Matter. They came and picked me up. I remember Wendy standing outside when I dressed out and came outside, and she looked at me and she says, are you Michelle Singh? And I was like, for that split second, my addiction brain was like, nope, because there's a car of one of my homies behind you. I can be gone and nobody will know. But what came out of my mouth was yes. So she said, okay, come on, get in the truck. And so I got in the truck, and we waited for one other person to come out of the jail that was going to treatment as well. And we took off, and we stopped at this gas station, still in Spanish Fork, and Utah County was my stomping ground, so I knew everybody, I knew people everywhere. So I'm thinking I could take off, they're not going to know. I'm just going to tell them I got to use the bathroom and just take off. But I didn't. I stayed. I got in the truck and drove out to Mount Pleasant. And as soon as we hit the city limits, I was really big into bicycles when I was in my addiction. And so as soon as we hit the city limits of Mount Pleasant, I was like, there's a bike there, there's a bike there. So I'm planning in my head my whole escape route of if I leave this treatment program, because it's in the middle of nowhere. So I had my escape plan all routed out with all the bikes I could see on Main Street. But as soon as we got to the facility and I set my feet on the ground, it was this whole feeling of, this is home. This is where you're supposed to be. And I remembered it was the weekend of a Halloween party for families, so there was a bunch of families there. And so we had activities for the kids and families, and then we had a drum circle. And so we're sitting outside around the fire pit, and they were talking and sharing, and I'm just, this whole vibe is just soothing to me. And we did, so as we're sitting there, these two, and my mom had 2 monarch butterflies, one on each side of her chest, tattoos. And so as we're sitting there, and I haven't seen a monarch butterfly for a long time, and as we're sitting there, 2 of them came flying down into the circle. And I was like, okay, Mom, I see you. And then we did the drum circle, and then the gal handed out crystals for us. Well, the crystal that she handed me was an amethyst, which is my mom's favorite stone. And then the theme song for graduations was the Judds Love Can Build a Bridge. And so at the end of this, we're singing that. That was one of my mom's favorite Judd songs. I was like, okay, Mom, I hear you. I know I'm supposed to be here. So I stayed. I stayed the full 90 days. I actually put in for an extension because I wasn't ready to go. I didn't want to. They denied me. They were like, no, you've got to go and grow. And so I went to Sober Living here in West Valley because I told them I can't do Utah County. I can guarantee I'm not going to succeed. So they found me a Sober Living with Sauna's House in West Valley. And I was there for a year and a half. Over the first, well, I got a job at Dee's restaurant on 21st in Redwood, down by the facility, by Redwood. And I was there from March until I got this job here in December of 2022. And I got this job and here at the VOA, and I loved it. Like, from the time I walked in for my interview with Dana till today, I love my job. I love it. I love being of service and offering these women that I work with every day the offers of hope and the chance that I was never given because we didn't have anything like this in Utah County. So I love being able to watch these ladies walk in off the streets the same way I did, just broken, lost, hopeless, self-loathing, all these horrible feelings that we feel in our addiction. And within a few days, that spark comes on in their eyes, that little light comes on, and then they just start glowing. And just being a part of that is just amazing, you know. And I live out in Tooele now. I've got 2 of my daughters living with me. I've got, you know, my 12-year-old. It's been an interesting journey with that one, becoming a mom again. You know, she was 5 years old when I went back out in active addiction, and so learning to be a mom again is a whole new, especially now this world we have with social media and all these fun things. So it's interesting. But yeah, I've got my own apartment. It's the first time, and I'm 50, almost 2 years old. And this is the first time in my entire life that I've had a place of my own. I'm not depending on a man. I'm not depending on family. This is a place that I have to call my own. I pay the bills, you know, my daughter and I pay the rent, and it's just an amazing feeling, you know. I love that I'm able to be a present mom for all of my girls. My one daughter, Ravina, is, she had gotten clean with me. We were in Sober Living, but with separate houses together. She, since relapsed, she's had a few stints in treatment since then. She's currently in Utah County Jail, but just having the capacity and the ability now to be a present mom and to be there for her and answer her phone calls and to, you know, do visits with her is very, it's just rewarding. Like, I'm a present mom now, and I feel like, in fact, India tells me all the time that she tells Gabby, my 12-year-old, she says, you're so lucky you have the mom that you have now, because this was not the mom that we grew up with. Because of my mental health, my drinking, my dependency on a man, I was not a good mom to my other kids growing up. And so so she reminds Gabby all the time that you're lucky you have the mom that we have now, because I'm not quick to anger. I have my little zen, you know, that I live in that zone now, and it takes a lot to get me really worked up, which I love. I love not being that kind of a person anymore. But yeah, I'm getting back out in the community. I've kind of lost touch with my community when I moved up to Tooele, because I was pretty big in the AACA, all the A's here in Salt Lake County, but moving out to Tooele, it was just too much of a drive, and so I'm working at getting back with my community. You know, I've been doing the outreach with Tatonka Warriors again, getting involved with them and attending sober softball to cheer them. I don't play, but just getting back out in the community, getting those connections is what I'm working on right now. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's so beautiful. Isn't that great? The vulnerability, how beautiful. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for being part of this. I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. And we will see you next episode. Bye. Bye.